You can't sing. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Crime Talk Tea Time.
Take 3. This is our third take.
Our third take of our third episode.
Try and stop us.
Try and stop us. You can't. So I guess I'll just back it all the way up. If you guys missed our live on Instagram about staying at the Versace mansion and the assassination of Gianni Versace, you should check that out. You can watch it again on our YouTube channel. It's uploaded on here and also on our Instagram.
I didn't even realize that
Tea Time.
Versace was murdered.
Yeah, and then once you find out, that you're staying there.
And he's murdered at his house. How horrible is that?
Yeah, he was a real stand-up guy, Gianni. But anyways, if you guys want to check that out, check it out. Yeah, R.I.P. Gianni.
So we're going to back up a little bit on our Laci Peterson case because one of us was like prematurely yelling, they found the body and blah, blah, blah. We're not gonna...
No trigger warning, no safe word, nothing.
Yeah, we're not going to be specific about who or point fingers or anything, but one of us was just, a little bit too early on they found the body because we do have some things we'd like to discuss.
Yeah, so we're going to back it up just a little bit and we are going to revisit some of the details of the autopsy. So trigger warning, talking about murder and stuff. So just know that. Something kind of noteworthy is that when Amber Fry comes forward, obviously Laci Peterson's family is no longer supporting Scott, meaning they obviously were unaware of his extramarital affairs, if you will, and so they were very publicly supportive of Scott. Anytime they were interviewed and asked if Scott had anything to do with Laci's murder or disappearance, they obviously,
They always said no. They said he seemed like a doting husband. They seemed really happy.
Yeah, just, of course, Scott could never do this naturally. But when Sharon Rocha actually heard about Scott's affair, I'm assuming from police authorities, she actually sobbed and said, why did he have to kill her? So they're no longer thinking that, okay, Scott's a great guy, great husband. He could never have anything to do with Laci's disappearance.
Now, Sharon Rocha does actually say in her book, she said a lot of people think just because he had an affair, we assume that he murdered Laci, but that's not true. The police shared some of the evidence that they had against Scott. Probably things, I'm speculating, but things like the 2-day fishing license, the secret boat, etc. And that's where they kind of came to that conclusion from. It wasn't just
all of it
because he had an affair.
Secrets, the lies, all that good stuff. And so that kind of narrative of her family supporting Scott is pretty much dead at this point. And so Scott really has no connection to Laci's family. And at some point, his mom reaches out to Scott's sister, Anne, and is like, look, everyone in Modesto is harassing Scott. He's like sleeping inside his car. Because of the media reports, everyone hates his guts.
What kind of life is that?
Yeah, can he come live with you? And so Anne grudgingly agrees to, let Scott come stay with her. And there's some pretty weird behavior leading up to the discovery of Laci and Connor's bodies that you'd find a little peculiar, sips tea. So there's one particular event where Anne's son, Tom, is being christened. She has a husband named Tom and a son named Tom also. So anyway, her son, Tom.
I love when people do that.
I love it. I love to hear it. So her son, Tom, is being christened, and she's thinking like, okay, after the service, our family's just like in need of some healing right now. Like, Scott's a mess. He's not really sad about anything, but his wife's missing. He should be a little upset, and everyone hates his guts. Like, we just should really join hands and fellowship as a family right now. So they go to do that with the officiant after the ceremony, and Scott is holding little baby Tom in his arms and looking at him and just starts hysterically crying, which is not super noteworthy by itself, but I just thought it was interesting that Anne later recounted. Anne, who's his sister, who's like very close to him during all of this, said that she felt like they were crocodile tears, that they were not genuine, that he wasn't mourning the loss of his son or his son being missing. there was actually someone likely from law enforcement following Scott that day, and they were all pretty aware of his presence, and that she now, in retrospect, feels like that crying performance was just in order to appear like a grieving husband
to
slash
throw
father.
the police off his trail a little bit.
Maybe make them like ease up a little
And
bit.
this
Like,
is
oh, maybe
before-
he's not that.
This is before the discovery of the bodies.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that's just pretty cringy. And so anyway, Scott comes to live with Anne, and he's just living his best life. He's like drinking with them, he's having a great time. And Anne's husband, Tom, remarks like he doesn't really
Elder Tom
says, hey, Anne, like he doesn't really seem that upset considering like his wife is missing.
Minimally. He doesn't even seem minimally upset.
Yeah, he's not even showing any signs of being upset. No, you're good. And that's a little concerning. And then there's a few instances where they see Scott just like openly hitting on their babysitter, which, keep in mind, he's also, as far as he's aware, maintaining a relationship with Amber Fry. So he has a missing wife for all intents and purposes that nobody knows where she is. Her body has not been located yet. He is maintaining a relationship with Amber Fry, at least that's what he thinks, and then he's hitting on this like younger babysitter. If that doesn't smell like a sociopath, what does?
Maximum cringe.
Maximum cringe. So, also during the same time, Scott, his sister Anne lives near the Berkeley Marina, right? So he spends a lot of time overlooking the bay and remarking that they're not looking in the right place and getting very like angry that police or law enforcement are searching there at all.
What would the right place be, though?
What would the right place be? So Anne asks him like,
what would
hey,
the right
Scott,
place be?
What would the right place be? And he doesn't seem interested. He doesn't seem to have any theories or, you know, express any other emotion other than anger at them searching there, which is just odd. And so, you know, Tom is kind of in Anne's ear like, Anne, this is not normal behavior. Like, I'm sorry. So Anne eventually confronts Scott, right? She's like, okay, Scott, like, did you have an affair? Like, tell the truth. He says, yeah, I had an affair. And she's like, okay, well, did Laci know about the affair? He goes, yeah, Laci knew. She's like, well,
She's cool.
When did you tell Laci? And he's like, early December. That's fine. Yeah, that's great. And she's like, I don't really believe that. As somebody who knows Laci, I just don't think this strong-willed firecracker of a woman would be almost 9 months pregnant and be like, that's okay.
That's fine.
My husband cheating on me, but that's okay.
Actually, he has cheated on her
And
before.
so the weird thing is she didn't go missing until Christmas Eve, right? Is when she was reported missing. So it's like, so you're saying that you told her in early December that you were a cheater, pumpkin eater, and she was like, that's okay. That's great.
For weeks.
For weeks.
Didn't mention to
She didn't
anyone.
mention it. Yeah, she didn't mention it to any family members. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. So eventually,
And I don't know if we covered this in the first installment, but he did cheat on her before with some girl from Cal Poly.
Yes.
Laci actually walked in on them when she was visiting
right.
him in college because he finished his degree up 1 year after her. And she did make a comment to her mom about it. She said something like, oh, Scott's not acting like a married man. But she didn't think that meant to the extent that he was actually, like, unfaithful. She thought it meant he was, you know, partying with his friends or not answering his phone.
And I think at some point we'll touch on it again, but that's not the only time that Scott has cheated on Laci. There's actually been other affairs
And
confirmed.
the police found 2 other relationships besides Amber Fry.
So it's not like if you are somebody that cheats on your wife that you are necessarily capable of murder, but I would say if you are someone that is a serial cheater and basically living a double life, I would say you're very capable of being a psychopath.
But you also can be pushed to the limit. You know, like, let's say, you know, Scott didn't want to be a father. That's something that Sharon Rocha brings up over and over in her book. She says that one of his friends remarked about how it was either a friend or family member of Laci's that Scott was, you know, when they were having issues conceiving, he was like, I'm hoping one of us is infertile.
Ha 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 ha.
Well,
And
they're
everyone laughs.
conceiving. They're trying to
Like,
conceive.
what? Scott.
You know, that's just not the... And then he's also said something like, I don't want to have any kids, you know, just stuff like that. Like
he really is a big kid himself. So.
And Laci told him very early on in their relationship, I want to have a family, I want to have kids. She was super excited about being pregnant. She kept a journal where she journaled about the changes she was experiencing through her pregnancy, and she was just like stoked. And it's so sad that like someone who had that many issues conceiving, I think it took them like, I don't know if months or a year or what, but it took them a long time. She was worried. And then she's so stoked. She's, you know, writing about it every day.
She's journaling about this. Like, she's pretty excited, obviously.
It's sad.
Well, and at some point, Anne's husband, Tom, gets really uncomfortable with Scott staying there. Like, hey, I'm just picking up some vibes. He's not too upset. He's hitting on the babysitter. Like, this guy has to go. But Anne, you know, as his sister, still feels bad for him. So she's like, all right, Scott, you got to get the heck out of here. But here are the keys to like the family cabin, and I guess you can go, you know, stay there. So at some point, probably when the police told Amber Fry, like, hey, Amber, you don't have to do this anymore, girl. Like, you don't have to record all these phone conversations. Like, thank you for all that you've done.
We have enough.
We have enough, we feel like, to, you know, hopefully convict Scott Peterson. She breaks it off with Scott. Mm-hmm. On the phone.
Well, I heard that was his decision.
So the funny thing is, Amber's like, hey, Scott, I've been thinking about it, and I just don't think that it's right for us to be talking, you know, with all this stuff going on. It's just not a good idea. And Scott's like, yeah, I agree. I've really been thinking about it a lot. Like,
I'm sure that's exactly what you were thinking.
Okay, yeah, sure, Scott.
Yeah, that's a typical, like, narcissist move to be like, yeah, on my terms.
Right. Like,
on my terms.
Yeah, it was a mutual thing.
Yeah,
it's like,
okay, mutual. We both agreed.
Yeah, so that was a little bit earlier in the year. On March 6th, they declare Laci Peterson's case a homicide. They can officially say, like, okay.
Yeah, they're no longer investigating a missing person. They're not looking for someone who was kidnapped.
They're looking for a body, essentially, yeah. Right. And they're pretty much only looking at Scott as the main
Right, and
subject.
some people say, oh, it's tunnel vision. Well, if you have a legitimate suspect...
Also, statistically, it's very likely that a woman was killed by her spouse or significant other, especially if they're having an affair, especially while pregnant. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's true. And then on April 13th, there's a couple that, you know, we touched on it before, actually find Connor's body washed up on shore.
Intact.
Yes, and sorry to be so pragmatic about obviously something so sad, but his body was in much better condition than Laci's. There was, essentially she washed up on shore the very next day.
That's
but
horrible.
her body was much more deteriorated. She was unfortunately missing her head and her arms, likely from being tied down.
Now, one of the Scott Peterson is innocent.com arguments is that, well, they've been searching that marina every day. It wasn't every day, it was several times. But they searched the marina several times and they never found Laci and Connor. So obviously, someone heard that's where Scott was when his wife went missing and killed Laci later on after kidnapping her and then dumped her body there. Okay, the issue with that is that doesn't make any sense, really, if you want to think about, like, logically. But is it possible? Maybe. But what also is possible is that they were not searching in the right spot. Where Laci was found was not where they were searching the marina. So they had never searched that area. If they had searched that area, they would have found her there.
Right.
So...
Well, and so that's the day that they find Laci. The day after they perform the autopsy, which basically they're performing the autopsy on essentially just a torso, right? Ugh. Laci is missing her head, her forearms, and her feet.
Makes cause of death very difficult to determine.
Yeah, the bodies were just too far deteriorated to really
it had been, 5 months?
Yeah, she went missing on Christmas Eve, and they found her pretty much mid-April.
Okay, so 4.5 months. And... the police do speculate that she was smothered in her sleep because she was wearing the clothes.
What she wore to bed, basically.
No,
on December
I guess
23rd.
that was what she wore out. I don't know. Okay. Maybe she fell asleep because she was just tired. Maybe I personally think something went down in the kitchen because Laci mopped the floor again after the maids were just there. I think something went down in the kitchen, and he just was trying to get rid of any potential evidence that would be there. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, so of course, in true Scott Peterson fashion, he can't just be like casually apprehended or like turn himself in or anything. There's essentially a chase, and I know we talked about that a little bit.
And he would drive erratically anytime he thought the cops or the media was tailing him.
Right.
So this was
the media probably did tail him. I mean, this was a really high-profile case.
They'd be like, Scott Peterson getting the mail. Like,
so when he was found, because we already kind of talked about it before, he was found with almost $15,000 cash, his brother's ID.
The car that he had just bought in cash was in his mother's name.
Right.
And the person that sold him the car even said, "Your name's Jackie?" And he's like, "Yep."
That's me.
He's like, And he goes, "It's like a boy named Sue kind of
He
thing."
had like some camping equipment and also like multiple changes of clothes, a pocket knife, which I don't think is too
if you're camping,
extraordinary. A lot of people carry pocket knives, but all of this to him is pretty excusable.
Of course, well, I think with his family, they excuse everything he does or says or acts.
I would agree.
So they would say, "Oh, he just liked to go camping. He was just trying to
get
get away.
Liked to camp. He just casually carried.
He camped on New Year's Day.
Like,
he went fishing on
Scott,
Christmas."
You're always picking these weird times to be doing
I
these
dabble
things alone.
in skydiving, camping,
oh my God.
rope making.
So those are kind of the loose ends that we had to tie up from the last episode, but let's talk a little bit about the evidence that that they planned on presenting during the trial.
We're doing the trial today.
Yeah, so let's dive right into the trial. So they found a pair of pliers on the boat with Laci's hair, a fiber of her hair.
And that's evidence because
I guess it could go either way. The prosecution would say that he had her dead body. The real Scott Peterson. Hi, thanks for doing this. Scott, this is not the Scott Peterson Innocence Project. I'm sorry.
You're on the wrong Twitch
stream. You've called the wrong number.
Oh my goodness.
You have the wrong number, Scott. Sorry.
So
I guess the prosecution would say that maybe Laci's body was on the boat and that maybe he used the pliers to, like, sorry to be so cringy, but like dismember her in some way.
That's stupid.
Or I don't know. I'm not
Here's
really
what
sure.
I think.
But the defense could also suggest that Laci being on the boat would be
evidence that she was
alive on the boat, right?
So I think the point of the pliers, I think he purposefully brought the pliers. I don't know if it was in his warehouse or on the boat.
That's right. For some reason I was
either way.
On the boat, but
either way.
I
think he had those because he was going to pull all of her teeth out.
Sick.
That's what I think.
R.I.P. Laci.
But sorry, the chat is getting really weird.
Who the F is this guy?
So anyway, I think he was gonna pull all of her teeth out. Then he was like, "I don't have to do all that. I've got anchors," and he tossed her overboard. They don't even think he stopped the boat. They think he was just kind of like, "Whoa."
I'm Scott.
Which is horrible. Why is there like 5 people with the name Scott Peterson in our chat?
You have the wrong number.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
this is not Scott's meat.
A police dog also picked up Laci's scent on or near the boat, but also
so here's
cross-contamination. That was not the most reliable.
Under ScottPetersonIsInnocent.com, they say that the item they let the dog sniff had Scott's scent and Laci's scent on it. It was like a mutual thing, or it was like Laci's shirt that was like in their bedroom. So they're saying like the dogs were compromised. Cadaver dogs are usually pretty reliable, but like the defense really like eviscerated their credentials. Like, can you imagine like these dogs with their badge that's like cadaver dog, and they like eviscerate their credentials?
Yeah, and unfortunately that was a large part of the case. They also found cement dust on his boat trailer.
But that just means he had cement around.
So I guess anchors can be really expensive. So some people do make their own anchors, essentially. So they were able to recover 1 cement block, but the amount of cement that was missing would make multiple cement blocks.
Right. So he had bought like a crap ton of cement.
Yeah.
And they think that he had, I think they had like 5 anchor molds or something.
Yeah, it would be a total of 5 anchors.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, 1 they were able to recover, right? So that one is accounted for. They're like, Scott, where's the rest of the cement? And he's like, oh, I used it to fill some cracks in my driveway.
Mm-hmm.
But they did actually go ahead and test and compare the cement used on the driveway and compared it to the cement block, and it was not consistent. So
yeah, that's actually interesting because Nancy Grace covered this case very
God bless Nancy Grace.
attentively and intensely, and that was one of the things that, I don't know if it was Scott's defense attorney or who pointed out to her. They said, oh, well, you want to know where's all that remaining cement? Because she kept saying, where's the rest of the cement?
How many cracks do you even have in your driveway to necessitate?
I don't know. I picture a cobblestone driveway.
It was the perfect amount for making anchors. The real Scott Peterson. Oh my God.
Stop it.
We should make a website called scottpetersonisinnocent.com and just make it all of the evidence of why he's not innocent.
I have a whole page called Holes in Scott's Case.
Oh, yeah.
Yee.
Yee.
Okay, so back to our story.
Oh, also, I think it's funny and noteworthy to mention that the cement block that Scott made as a boat anchor wasn't even heavy enough to weigh the boat down. So they don't even think that he planned on, like, if he did plan on actually anchoring the boat to throw Laci Peterson's body off of the boat, God forbid, it wouldn't have even held the boat down. So it just goes to, I feel like it speaks to how much of a fisherman Scott Peterson is not and how little he knows about boats. So just wanted to throw that in there. So obviously, you know, Scott was apprehended, he's been arrested and all of that stuff. They're looking at starting the trial. Scott is very against holding the trial in Modesto, where he and Laci both lived.
I actually agree with that. I don't think he could ever, first of all, I don't think Scott Peterson had a fair trial.
32 cracks, crack is whack.
Okay, they're saying how many cracks does it take for you to use cement to fill it in? It's ignore. So anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So you were saying you agree they shouldn't have had the trial in Modesto. It wouldn't have helped the case at all.
He did not have a fair trial.
Definitely not.
He could not have a fair trial, just like O.J. Simpson, who I think is guilty, but he could not have a fair trial. Does that mean he should be tried on television? No. Does that mean he should be tried somewhere where people have heard of him and have an opinion? No.
Right.
Is there anywhere you can try him? Maybe not. Like, that's an issue.
Well, and also, too, obviously the papers at this point in time are really publishing very sensationalized articles, and all of them are not necessarily accurate.
Speaking of sensationalized, before Scott Peterson gets arrested and is on the run to Mexico, he makes one last-ditch effort to Amber Fry. He's like, run away with me, Amber.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Scott's.
Stop reading that.
Scott's.
Okay, I'm waiting for someone to use the screen name Queen of Scots.
That's you.
I don't know. Well, so where do they end up having the trial anyway? I actually don't know.
So they end up moving it to Redwood, California. The reason I didn't know that off the top of my head is because where is Redwood, California? Like, you ever heard of it? Because I haven't. So, but anyway, I mean, even though they moved the trial from Modesto to Redwood, good on that. But at the same time, this was a national story at this point.
National.
So on March 4th, the jury selection starts, which is not going to be any easy task, obviously, because everyone and their mom has heard of this case. Mm-hmm. Literally, everyone and their mom.
And the jury selection ends up being so controversial that later, when Scott appeals his sentence, that's one of the factors that actually allows him to, spoiler alert, he gets convicted with death.
Oh my God, you ruined everything.
Spoiler alert, but he appeals his sentence, and because of this jury selection process, he's able to get life in prison.
Just like that. Well, so some of the things that they were kind of like asking the jurors when they're selecting the jury pool, they're asking how they feel about like extramarital affairs, about their knowledge of boats, which apparently Scott doesn't have any. So, and then just like how familiar they are with the case in general. One thing that I think is kind of funny about that is because not everyone is going to be honest. Some people, I guess, want to be a part of a high profile case like this, so you know they're probably going to minimize and downplay what they do know about the case, like, oh yeah, Scott Peterson, who's that? I don't
Who's
even
that? Also, one of the questions they asked was, do you support the death penalty?
Yeah.
Or are you opposed to the death penalty? Because if anyone that was opposed to the death penalty was not really allowed to be on the jury.
Right.
And that's where the appeal comes from. Is because the question, they argued the question they should have asked was, if you are opposed to the death penalty, would you be able to set aside your beliefs in order to give someone the sentence of death for a crime that fits that punishment? Or something like that. Like, I'm wording it, but I don't know.
You're adding your own little flavor.
The thing is if you oppose the death penalty, it's going to be a locked jury on the sentencing, and that's actually what ends up happening anyway. And guess who sentenced him to death? The judge.
You're skipping ahead.
Okay, sorry.
You're
anyway.
skipping ahead. God, you always do that. No, I'm just kidding.
They found the body.
Yeah, like, so something that's kind of noteworthy too is they do not choose to sequester the jury, which I think most people can attest is a pretty big mistake. Obviously, these people are going to go home and research everything that they can. There's so many articles being posted or being shared in the media about this case, and so you would have to be crazy probably to not go home and be either bombarded by it, you know, have your friends and family commenting on it and what they think about the case. And so that's just really not a great decision. And it looks like 50% of the questionnaires said that they thought Scott Peterson was guilty. 50%. This is before the trial even starts.
And this is interesting because 50% of our chat on Twitch is actually named Scott. So everyone has the name Scott in their screen name.
Maybe they didn't know which Scott Peterson. No, but I think that that's interesting because 50% thought that he was guilty. It's very likely that more than 50% thought that he was guilty, but some of those people were probably lying so that they could be on the case.
Statistically, he's either guilty or not, and that's a 50% chance. Am I right?
True.
So is it really that bad? What percent should say he's guilty?
Yeah, that's a good point.
If half said yes and half said no, that's 50-50.
But if you're going by the definition of guilty, convict, or reasonable doubt not guilty, then
Reasonable doubt.
So
my question is, I don't know. I mean, what percent would be appropriate to say he's guilty? None? Say we don't know? I don't know.
Well, so in defending Scott Peterson, their kind of position and some of the things that they were working with is that that he was very charismatic, that he was this great guy, kind of like a character testimony, which is funny because like a lot of the cases assassinating his character, but like, all right, you know, that there's kind of a gray area. Like, he could be a cheater, but is he a murderer?
Right, and the thing is I don't think just because you're a cheater or a serial cheater, you're capable of murder, or you are a murderer. Like, it's not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
But in this case, they're saying his affair, which was a developing relationship, was the motive.
Right.
As opposed to having a happy marriage where they were welcoming a baby excitedly. Like, that wasn't what was happening in this marriage.
Definitely not. And so the prosecution starts their case, and they're basically saying, like, hey, this Scott Peterson guy, this charismatic character over here, he didn't want a family, and we can pretty much confirm that, you know, with these witnesses. Their case was viewed as kind of weak in the beginning. You know, their narration of things is not particularly exciting to listen to.
Do you have information on juror number 4 at all? Just wondering.
Yes.
Okay, just
later
curious.
on in the spiel, but
I wonder if that guy wrote a book.
Their case was described by one juror as rambling.
Oh.
How would you like to be a prosecutor and for your case to be
Well, that
described
prosecutor, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was a person who wasn't super
you probably came way too late, but what are we talking about? We're talking about the
Scott
Peterson and Laci Peterson case. And we're talking specifically about the trial. Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Juror number 4 also wanted to kill. Juror number 4, is that you?
Juror number 4.
Yeah. So another kind of like theory that the defense goes with is that they're just railroading Scott. The police and the investigation, all of it was to just railroad Scott, that they didn't really pursue any other suspects. Which is just not really true. I think Scott obviously had some odd behavior and a lot of circumstantial evidence that, during the investigation obviously pointed to him. And so naturally he was suspect numero uno.
Yes, he was the sole suspect.
Correct. Yes. So one thing I thought was interesting during the trial, they have Scott's friend, Greg, on the stand.
Good old Greg.
Yes. And the details of this are a little bit kind of odd, but basically Greg said that on Christmas Eve, he got a call from Scott Peterson, frantic, freaking out, saying, hey, have you seen Laci? Did you see her this morning?
Oh, we're just true crime fans. We don't have law enforcement background. We always say that. Actually, we said that only the first episode. Maybe we should say that every time.
Maybe we should say it more often. But I feel like it just kind of, we're passionate about the subject.
I have an education. It's just not in criminology.
Exactly.
But do I know a thing or two?
She's just a criminal.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm a criminal. No.
Well, you could have fooled me. Oh, that's very sweet.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. I knew that was going to be a compliment.
Okay, so... Wow, is the ring light getting hot, or are you just
the ring light getting
shy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Greg says that he got a call from Scott, and Scott's freaking out. This is Christmas Eve, the day that Laci was reported missing, right? And he's like, Greg, have you seen Laci this morning or the afternoon? Okay, well, supposedly Scott is claiming he was with Laci on the morning of December 24th, aka Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. So that's just a really weird thing to say. Why are you saying, have you seen Laci this morning, when you're also saying that you were with her, unless you secretly know that she was dead the night before?
Morning can have multiple definitions.
Oh my God, Scott Peterson.
Scott Peterson claims that Laci was living when he left at 9:30 a.m. So did he mean this morning as in 10 or 11, 11:30?
Oh my
Or afternoon?
God.
I'm just saying.
Yikes. There was a witness that said that she saw Laci Peterson on 12/24, aka Christmas Eve, at the warehouse. At the warehouse. I wasn't sure if it was at the warehouse or
what?
She said that she saw Laci Peterson at the warehouse, and she remembers her because she asked to use the bathroom and she was super pregnant. Ooh. I'm thinking, I don't know how reliable this particular witness's testimony is, but maybe she let a pregnant woman use the bathroom and she mistook her for Laci Peterson.
Pregnant women are hanging out at Scott's warehouse, though. Let's just be honest. Here we go. Here's the other thing, though. Is over a dozen people claim that they saw Laci walking the dog over this 5 square mile area.
Yeah.
So where was Laci? That's the real question. Was she walking the dog here? Was she walking the dog 5 miles away? Was she at the warehouse getting her hair pulled out with pliers? We don't know.
Nobody knows.
It's so sad. I mean, she sounded like such a sweet person, and I mean, reading Sharon Roach's book was really what
paints her in a light.
She's just real person, fun and sassy.
There's even some video clips of her too, where she just seems so, and I hate this cliche, but so full of life. Just very lively. Seems like a sweet person.
This chat is cursed. I just
I
wish the chat was able to scroll on the screen. I'm sure there's a way to do that when we record it, but I don't know.
I like the chat. But so Sean, I don't know if y'all remember Sean. If you listened to our
I remember Sean.
Nobody asked you.
Sean is, can I go?
Yeah, go.
Sean is Amber Fry's friend who introduced her to
real Scott Peterson.
The actual Scott Peterson, not the one trolling our chat.
Yeah. And so Sean was the one that kind of set them up, and I almost said Scott. Sean goes ahead and gives testimony, and from that testimony you can pretty much confirm that he was probably having some kind of inappropriate relationship with her at the very least. It was described by others as just an inappropriate way of behaving for a married man, and also Sean claimed to be engaged or something of the sort, so it's just not an appropriate way for two people that are not on the market to be
a lot of behaving. Things that keep coming from the trial, those are just because he was inappropriate, sleazy, skeezy,
lied to everyone, had very inconsistent timelines, lots of circumstantial evidence.
Swanky.
Doesn't mean he's a murderer.
Doesn't mean he's a murderer. That's true. And I agree with that.
Mike in Texas is just here for the chat. So that's pretty damning. And then Amber Fry comes onto the scene.
They had her. So get this. This is my favorite part because Amber Fry was pregnant, not with Scott's kid, obviously.
Thank God.
Because he was in jail.
Yes.
Correct. But she was pregnant with someone else's kid, And the defense decided to not call her when she was pregnant because they felt like it would remind people of Laci, and they'd be like picking apart this pregnant woman's story. They'd look like a jerk. So they waited until after she gave birth to call her, and I think she testified for 3 days or something.
She did, and they also played the tapes, which were obviously pretty damning. I mean, forget spilling the tea.
Tapes.
Like, Amber Fry flipped the damn pot. Okay, she spilled all the tea.
Yeah.
Another thing that was kind of interesting that has to do with Amber Fry is they also showed, and I think we talked about this in maybe installment 2, they showed the 2 pictures of the 2 Christmas parties. So there's basically a photo of super cute Laci Peterson, super pregs, at a Christmas party by herself, just her, population 1. And then fast forward, same evening, right? A Christmas party of Amber Fry and Scott Peterson, and they're like,
LOL.
like that, like they're just.
I think we're gonna get
all over
banned
each
from
other.
Twitch for doing that.
Demonetized.
We're siblings.
It's not that kind of show. It's not that kind of show.
So,
it sounds like an episode of Jersey Shore. It kind of is.
it's really bad.
In all the
It's really bad.
worst
Get this.
ways.
This is just for take a break sometime. Let me tell you this.
Time out.
So Laci Peterson was murdered by her husband. She was pregnant, 8.5 months. Okay, her due date was his mistress's birthday.
Damn.
And his mistress's due date was Laci's birthday.
That's like some weird cosmic stuff.
What is that?
I don't know. So,
Juror number 4?
not yet. Come on. No, I'm just kidding. And actually, we'll talk about juror number 7.
Oh, I thought it was juror number 4.
Sorry about it.
Oh.
So they start to play or show, I'm assuming via a slideshow or some kind of presentation, they start to show the autopsy photos. And
Oh God! I was just doing a little head bob, and you said
yeah,
autopsy
maybe
photos.
don't bob your head because it's insensitive. Get it together. Focus. No, just kidding. But so they start to, show the autopsy photos, and it has been said that Sharon Rocha, Laci Peterson's mother, asked to not be in the room for that because obviously it would be upsetting to anyone with a conscience. Scott Peterson also did not want to be in the courtroom when they were showing the photos. I don't know exactly why, but he was. And so
Maybe he was afraid he'd get aroused or something.
oh my God, stop. So one juror remarked that when they showed photos of Connor, Laci Peterson's unborn son's dead body, that makes sense. Hope I said that correctly. Corpse. Is that? I don't like that word.
Okay.
Body? I don't like laughing about that either.
Yeah, that was not cool.
I'm pregnant too, for those of you that don't know. Just
Yeah.
all of this is like triggering for me to talk about. But anyway, so they start showing the photos of Connor's body, and Scott is like not even looking at them. Like, I mean, obviously I don't think that that's unreasonable to not want to see that. That would be traumatic for anyone. But especially if you were the cause of that
Or not.
situation. Yeah, and then
Maybe he's squeamish.
the same juror also remarked that when they would show photos of Laci's body, which was essentially just like a torso, right? That he stared at them for a long time, whatever that means, before eventually looking away. So that's pretty sad. Disgusting.
I don't even want to know what's going through his weird head. He's probably like, that's not how I left it.
Yeah, probably. And then also too,
How did that
not
happen?
to get gory and disrespectful, but there was marine life living inside of her like chest cavity. The body was really deteriorated, so
That's so sad.
She was in the bay essentially from late December until April when they found her. So
No one deserves that, especially, it sounds like she was just a sweet, happy person. I don't know, just ignore the chat. It's freaking me out.
True crime daily cases. Sister videos are really popular right now. Oh, okay. I love to hear it. So the prosecution was kind of
I
going.
don't think that's the kind of sister videos they meant, but okay.
Yeah, what websites are you searching?
ScottPetersonIsInnocent.com.net.
Don't promote it until you own the rights to it. I told you. So anyway, the prosecution was kind of running with like, okay, Laci was pregnant. Inevitably, she's going to start expecting more from Scott, right? Scott, who's obviously cheating on her with not one, not two, but like possibly more than two women's, plural. And obviously that would, just get in the way of his cheating ways. He has this pregnant wife, and it was just kind of a life he didn't want.
He didn't want kids. He didn't want a divorce. He had a life insurance policy on her.
So basically their theory is that he strangled her at some point and then weighed her body down with cement blocks and tossed her off the boat, pretty much.
You know what else is crazy is...
Thanks for the follow.
Crap, I just lost my train of thought.
Dang it.
It's fine.
It'll come back later.
It probably will.
And you'll blurt it out at the wrong time. Don't worry. I'm just kidding. Love you all.
Juror number 7.
Yeah, so the defense theories or theorizes that, oh man, so this is where it gets kind of weird, okay? It gets kind of weird. So 6 months before Laci's disappearance, there was this 24-year-old named Evelyn Hernandez who was also pregnant. And she was pregnant by her boyfriend, right? And her boyfriend was married to somebody else.
Oh, conflict of interest.
Yeah, so the defense was essentially trying to make a connection between these two cases. And what's really sad about Evelyn Hernandez in particular is she was a woman of color, and this case got like no coverage whatsoever, which is very different from almost the same case.
Don't read it out loud. Just keep moving on.
No. So it's very different. It's very different. The case that Evelyn Hernandez had, right, which got essentially no press coverage whatsoever. Pregnant woman murdered, essentially, versus the Laci Peterson case, who is a Caucasian woman, pregnant, murdered.
She's half like Portuguese or something.
Okay.
That's a Caucasian still, right? It's still Caucasian.
A Caucasian couple.
Or she's a
and this particular case obviously gets a lot of press coverage. But so I'll let you draw kind of your own conclusions there, but it's just odd. So the defense basically tries to draw some parallels between these two cases, which I guess maybe might be a good strategy.
Is that the one they thought the Satanists?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that, because basically what they were drawing parallels between these two cases, but essentially what they were saying they had in common is that they were both probably killed by Satanists, which I guess was a very hot button topic at the time.
Oh yeah, in the 90s, like
the 90s are back, baby.
Yeah, is that like even like Columbine too? They're like, oh, Satanism and Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, so they're basically saying that there's a satanic cult that's killing pregnant women. Like, watch out. Like, they're everywhere, Like, hide your kids, hide your wife, literally. Ooh. And then I guess there's this cult called the Children of Satan. Hope I said that right if you're watching. And they killed I don't like laughing when I'm talking about stuff like this. So unfortunately, 4 people were killed by this cult. Yeah, and it's called the Murders of Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street.
What?
Seeing a connection. Yeah. Yep. So juror number 7, I'll let you tell
Juror
it.
number 7. Juror number 7.
I'm gonna make you a shirt that says juror number 7.
I think you should say juror number 4 crossed out.
Juror number 7.
7.
Yeah.
He was causing waves because he was like, I don't think he did it. Basically,
no, wrong juror.
Wrong juror? Okay, then you go.
God, juror number 7 is the first juror to get dismissed, I believe, and she gets dismissed for, and I think she got caught researching the case.
They didn't sequester
online.
the jury.
They didn't sequester the jury, but I guess that obviously is like a conflict of interest. They probably prepped the jury, like, hey, like, when you go home after a long day of hearing why Scott Peterson is a terrible person.
I would go home and research it.
I would probably go home and have nightmares, but that's neither here nor there. So shortly after juror number 5, and that's who you're thinking of, Gregory Jackson.
I still wasn't.
I remember his name because he has like a really easy name, and it also makes me think of the YouTuber Onision, whose name is also Gregory, I think. Anyway, he gets dismissed because, take it away. There you go.
Because he thought, so first of all, this actually has nothing to do with why he got dismissed, but he feels like it does. He was a dissenter. He was like, I feel like the prosecution's case is weak. I feel like they don't have enough evidence. He kept using words like evidence and reasonable doubt. They didn't like it, is his point. But
like, you're making this take too long,
is
Gregory
he the
Jackson?
one that made made a joke to Scott Peterson's brother? Was that him?
That was actually a different juror.
Different juror. Okay,
Yeah.
so back to juror number 5.
Juror number 5.
Why did he get dismissed?
He got dismissed because basically what really went down is this. Let me break it down for y'all. He is just making the case take so much longer, or deliberations, I should say. He's making deliberations take a really long time. He wants to go over every detail. It was said, I think I heard on Stephanie Harlow's recount of the case, that he had filled 19 notebooks, like 19 notebooks with notes of the trial. And she didn't mention this, but I was thinking, like, he kind of sounds like somebody that would write a book afterwards. Don't a lot of jurors do that? They make a lot of money doing that.
That's true.
So
Also,
kind of sounds like somebody that wants to remember
Some
everything.
people are meticulous too. Like, I'd probably take notes.
It's like, how are you going to remember or refer to 19 pages of notes? It sounds like the worst college class I've ever taken. God.
19 notebooks.
Yikes. 19 notebooks.
That's like my
so
entire
he's like,
college career
and
notebooks.
people are not liking this. The other jurors are like, okay, you're making this thing take way too long.
He wanted to keep going over stuff that they'd already gone over.
And so they kind of were like bullying him a little bit. I hate to use that word because like they're all grown adults, obviously.
It's terrible.
But yeah, eventually he approaches the judge and he's like, Judge, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it ain't worth it, bro. It ain't worth it. So the judge is like, all right, you can go. I didn't know it works like that. Like, if you're really that unhappy, they'll just let you go. Like, that's all you have to do. Imagine if it was just that easy.
Am I right? Is the one that I'm talking about that got kicked off and he's like, I think Scott Peterson, his case is too weak. Is that juror number 4? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember that.
This is not good. We should have rehearsed this.
I mean, we can only prep so much, you know? So, yeah. That's juror number 5, Gregory Jackson. And then also at some point, like during the trial, so when Scott shows up and he's apprehended and arrested, he like bleached his hair. Remember, he was like kind of trying to flee for Mexico maybe, and had like a bleached beard and bleached hair. He looked like a Backstreet Boy. And then at some point during the trial, he like loses 40 pounds real quick. Oof. And shaves his beard. He's like totally clean shaven, and he kind of looks more like the Scott Peterson
we knew and loved.
Yeah, that we knew and hated from before the trial. So he's just not looking too good. Like, prison is not really being very kind to Scott Peterson at this point. And so finally, after all of these jurors are replaced and kicked off the trial, November 12th, 2004, they finally find Scott guilty of first-degree murder of Laci, first degree, and second-degree murder of his unborn child, Connor. Thank you for that. And so during the penalty phase of the trial, which obviously, as the name suggests, is where they decide what the penalty will be for a crime.
Oh, this is kind of a fiasco, but I think I already described it in detail prematurely.
Yeah, so Sharon Rocha, Laci Peterson's mom, gave a really emotional testimony.
Why are you like giggling? You're so
I'm
weird.
laughing because I said emotional, and I just caught it on the wrong word.
I will say, is this at the sentencing hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope Sharon Rocha doesn't listen to this, but
Sharon Rocha,
I'm sure she wouldn't. But
off.
I'm just saying, I listened to the reading of her I guess it's a testimony. I don't know.
Yeah,
but she said she spent like years writing this. I didn't think it was insulting enough.
Yeah, but actually the testimony itself, I kind of like highlighted some interesting parts.
Is this at the sentencing hearing?
This is the penalty phase of the trial.
I don't know what that means.
So it's, I guess, what they determined with it. So I think it would be the same
sentencing
thing.
hearing.
So Sharon testifies. She says divorce was an option. You didn't have to kill her.
But she says in her book, she bellowed it from hell, like, blah, like it was like,
so maybe I wasn't emotional enough. Like,
she's like,
divorce was an option.
She said, like,
but you didn't have to kill her.
She said people went dead quiet.
Yeah, because she's probably freaking right.
In the courtroom, she said it was like shook. People were shook.
Yeah, she was really. I mean, it was a really.
I think she should have roasted Scott a little harder. Been like, you blonde hair, dying, Mexico fleeing, money hoarding, like.
Keep them coming, don't stop.
Murdering.
She also flipped out and was like, you knew where they were the whole time.
Yeah, what
you
a
never
jerk.
told us. I mean, they spent so much time.
Who do you tell your secrets to? You know, why not that guy? He's not going to tell anybody.
No kidding.
Anyway, your face. Anyway, I will say, though, my favorite line from her speech was when she said something like, not even the devil would take a credit for you, or something like that. It was something super epic. I don't know exactly.
And then another really like sad highlight, I guess you'd call it like a low light. a low light of her testimony.
Okay.
What?
This is a bizarre terminology.
So, I don't know. I'm just saying a really sad
We have
piece.
fun here.
It's a fun crime talk tea time. Another really sad chunk of her testimony is she was saying that, like, Laci's dying wish, her last wish, the thing she would want more than anything on this earth, if she and her son were to die, would be to hold him in the casket, right? She has no forearms, so she can't hold Connor in the casket. I'm assuming they were just like placed next to each other, or maybe they were like this.
I don't know how they could have placed them. She had no arms, legs, or head. That's
so
horrible.
she was basically a torso. Yeah. And
she says
Connor
that.
was in better condition, but so however they were configured in the casket, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, it's just really sad that she couldn't hold her son in the casket. And at this point, 2 jurors are like sobbing during her testimony. They just found it really sad, obviously.
I also remember her saying that Laci was seasick, like on the water, like you are always seasick on the water.
I get real seasick.
And she's like, that's pretty sick that you left her bobbing in the sea, like knowing like she's, terrified of, water and being seasick. It's just terrible.
It's not a good look, Scott. It's definitely not a good look.
I feel like we haven't dragged Scott through the muck enough. But I don't know. I'm thinking about writing him a letter and seeing if he wants to have an interview with us.
We can send him a link to our lives.
And be like, hi, I'm interested in starting a website called scottpetersonisinnocent.net.com and wanted to see if you
had anything to contribute,
Any thoughts?
Any contribution? So a couple of the jurors were interviewed after the trial was over, and they just like dragged Scott.
It was bad.
You thought Sharon Rocha was bad?
It was unprofessional though.
It didn't look good, honestly.
But they're average people. Like, it's a jury of your peers. Like, how professional do they have to be?
Well, and I guess you could look at it like, I think one of them made a comment like, whichever prison he was going to be in, they're like, oh, prison's your new home, Scotty, or like something like that.
And they're like,
it wasn't tasteful at all.
They said if there was one thing if you could ask Scott Peterson one thing, what would it be? And instead of being like, why did you do it? Like anything like intelligible. One of them like cracks a joke at and is like, I'd ask him if he misses those pay-per-view videos he was ordering while he was living by himself, because apparently he ordered some like dirty pay-per-view videos
while Laci was missing. Yeah,
which is like, okay, what are you supposed to not watch porn just because your wife is missing? I don't know. I'm not a man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So the jurors, they were pretty distasteful, but I guess also you could kind of interpret it as they obviously felt pretty secure in their decision.
They did. They were roasting him. They were LOLing.
They were like, oh, Scott, enjoy your new prison home. Oh, Scott.
Hope you look good in orange.
Yeah, so pretty quickly after the trial, Scott Peterson asks for a retrial, saying that he didn't have a fair trial.
They do that all the time.
Yeah.
He didn't have a fair trial.
I don't know that he could, really.
But didn't they they're like, yeah, you did. And they turned down his appeal. Like, you had a fair enough trial.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
So I guess we'll probably leave it right around here. Right around here. And then maybe next episode we'll catch you all up on Scott, our special guest that will be joining us via Skype.
Oh, please.
No,
yeah. Yeah, that's a joke. That's a joke.
Just kidding. But no, we'll talk about...
weird laugh again. Oh, God.
Why do you hate me?
I don't hate you.
You just hate my laugh.
She started doing this new laugh, and it's stressing me out.
I think it's like a scared laugh.
Nervous laugh? Are you always nervous?
Ring light hot.
Ring light hot. It is hot.
It's hot.
It's hot.
Anyway, before we keep rambling, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you all in our next Crime Talk Tea Time installment next Thursday.
And special shout out to Ramses and Michaela, and also my name is Scott's. That was weird, so thanks you guys for
weird.
Listening.
We love it.
Yeah.
Bye.
You can end it.
End it. That was great. Killed it.
Is that sensitive to say?
Oh!